just saw the scariest man alive. I'm sure everyone on earth can agree. Hello and welcome to the Golden Octagon MMA Podcast, number 12. My name is Matt Anderson. On the right side of your screen, we have my man, Dorian Rose. How are you doing today, my man?
We're doing good, man. And, I'm a listener of the Anik and Florian podcast. And one thing John Anik says on there all the time is, for MMA fans, they need to have their own podcast because, you got to talk about this stuff and get it off your chest, man. And I'm glad we're able to do this just to, kind of get this stuff off our chest because last night, that was a hell of a card and a hell of a finish to the main event. So excited to talk about it.
Definitely. Just before we get started, I couldn't sleep last night. I was up till damn near 2 a.m. just because I was buzzing off that fight, man. I was so excited all day. I had watched every video possible titled Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic. I just wanted to hear everything, but it's over. We have a new heavyweight champion, Francis Ngannou. We'll get into it. But before we get started, if you guys wouldn't mind, please put a thumbs up on this video, subscribe, share this with everyone that enjoys MMA, UFC, all of that good stuff. So here we go. Before we get started, I'm going to give you guys a quick rundown on just what to look forward to. So on today's show, we are going to be talking about the entire card last night, the entire main card, prelims, or any other fights on the card that Dorian wants to talk about. And then we'll be moving down to the heavyweight division as a whole. Where is it at? We're going to talk about Stipe, everyone's favorite, Jon Jones, what's happening with Derrick Lewis right now, and who Francis Ngannou is going to fight next. Who knows? That being said, we will talk about any news and other topics. Not really too much aside from the main shit that's gone on. And then we will be talking about the 135 division. Aljamain Sterling recently spoke, and, it's kind of interesting. His thoughts on the division as a whole. And then lastly, Dorian, I hope you brought something better this week than your last time. We will be talking about your WTF moment. Your topic of the week. What do you got? What are you going to throw at me? That is the last topic on today's show. But that is all that we have. Let's get into it. Alright, so up first on today's show, let's talk about last night's card. UFC 260, Francis Ngannou versus Stipe Miocic. We had some picks here. Let's go ahead and just jump right into this. It ended up being a tie because you picked Stipe, I picked Francis, so I'm up one. We both picked Luque, we both picked O'Malley. You picked Malarkey, I picked Kamaworthy, so that's one win each, a tie for each. So I believe the belt is just going to stay back here at home where it belongs. But you know what? I'm not going to go throw it around my shoulder and all that just because it was a tie. I didn't win it unanimously, so it will stay on the shelf. Not until next week because we don't have a card next week. So until the week after, this puppy is staying here, staying home. But that being said, let's talk about this card, Dorian. I can't wait to talk about this. I really believe that we saw the scariest man alive last night. And that scariest man alive isn't this rushing forward, battering, I don't even know the words to explain Francis Ngannou what he normally does, but that wasn't him last night. Francis Ngannou was patient. He was composed. He was throwing a jab. He threw a head kick. He took Stipe down. Man, the dude is the scariest man alive. I don't really know what else to say besides at one faint point after Stipe being hit multiple times, he got Francis good with a I don't remember if it was a right hook or a right straight, but he thought he hurt Francis, but no. Francis was resetting his feet, and at that point, Francis just threw a one straight down the pipe and just melted Stipe, lawn chaired him, as I like to say. I felt bad for Stipe because he just looked like he didn't know anything to do. Francis was putting a clinic on him. I'm out of breath, Dorian. Go ahead, and what did you think about this fight, dude?
Well, I I was actually out of breath last night when I was watching Ngannou swing, man. He's so freaking scary, man. And whenever he swings, like I just hold my breath because I'm like, anybody can die at any given moment. First off, I gotta say, man, just feel so bad for Stipe Miocic, man. Just for him being the stand-up guy that he is, the great champion that he is. He's definitely the greatest UFC heavyweight of all time. For him to, he beat Ngannou the first time, came in, won 2 fights against DC. So, he's kind of at a point where he's, got his confidence back from the DC knockout and everything. And Ngannou just comes and snatches everything right away from him. And Ngannou just coming out, and he hit him in that big right hand at the beginning of the first round. And the old Francis would have swarmed him and tried to have gotten him out of there. But he didn't do that. He was so calm and just reserved. And once he hit him with that right hand, he knew that he could connect. He just knew that he had to be patient about landing his shot. And he had started landing big leg kicks. You could see that Stipe was starting to get whipped around by those too. So Stipe had started to panic because he really didn't know what to do in terms of trying to keep it close on the feet. So he goes for the takedown, and Francis stuffs his head and actually brings down his hips to where he stuffs Stipe's takedown, and then Francis gets Stipe's back and takes him down and starts winding punches on him. And I heard DC say after the fight to Francis that once he stuffed that takedown the way he did against Stipe and was able to throw Stipe to the ground, that fight was over. Because Francis already showed how much more improved he has been since their first fight back in 2018 with his wrestling defense. I know it was only one true takedown that Stipe went for, but the one that he went down for, Francis showed really good defense against it, and then he was able to get a takedown of his own. And he was patient. Didn't try to rush any of the shots. He landed that big left punch at the beginning of the second, rocked Stipe real bad, got him up against the cage. He landed a few more shots, but then Francis was still patient. And Stipe did throw a hard right down the middle, and it did look like Francis got hurt for a second, but Stipe was still hurt. And, man, he got a little overzealous there when he landed that big right hand, and that's when he stepped in and Ngannou threw that check left hook and landed right on the chin. And it was crazy to see how his leg got folded up underneath him in the way that it did when he got knocked out, man. And Francis going in for the kill for that one last shot. I mean, that's a scary man. And I know that, a lot of people have said for a long time Francis Ngannou was the uncrowned champ, but man, he absolutely proved why he was deserving to be the champ that people thought he was back in 2018. Man, he's the scariest person alive, no doubt about it, and he absolutely put on the clinic.
Okay, I really don't even know what else to say about just this fight, just the fight, because I just want to dive into just each fighter so much, but we have to save it for later on the show. So I guess pretty much that's just it for the fight. Just Francis really just showing his improvements over these past couple years. I know the last fight Francis that we seen was just against Rosenstruck, and he just came out and that wasn't even a combination. He was just throwing his hands. But the Francis last night just is something that we've never seen before. This definitely the scariest thing that I've ever seen. I'm pretty sure the scariest person that Dorian has ever seen. This is something just I can't even put to words. And as Dorian said, when he landed that hammer fist when he was down, in the famous words of Jorge Masvidal, super necessary, and it was a night of super necessary. We are going to skip this Tyron Woodley versus Alex Vicente Luque fight just for a moment and talk about my man Suga Sean O'Malley versus Thomas Almeida. he ended up having to drop the super necessary on him there at the end, and it was Mark Smith's fault. I messaged you right as soon as this fight was over, and I said it was Mark Smith's fault. Mark Smith made him do that. In the first round, Suga Sean doing what Suga Sean does, just beating the brakes off Thomas Almeida. And then at one point, hits him with a nasty head kick, and then pretty much just overhand, knocks him down from that point, and he goes to walk off. Mark Smith looks at Sean O'Malley like, hey, the fight's not over. And Sean O'Malley walks over to Thomas Almeida and just kind of looks at him. Thomas Almeida stands up, and the fight resumes for another 2 rounds. Fast forward, pretty much Suga Sean just on the outside, piecing Almeida up the whole time. There was really no chance of Almeida winning that fight. He hit him a couple times, once, twice, here or there, but really Suga Sean just putting a performance down over Thomas Almeida. Third round, Suga Sean dropped him, walked off, and looked at the referee, and he's like, hey, Suga Sean literally strolled back over to Thomas Almeida, and it was almost like Mark Smith is like, finish him. Puts a hammer down. I just sent you like a video of this. If I can, without getting in too much trouble, I'll insert a small clip of just the sound that it made. It was crazy, the sound that it made. Almeida's head off the canvas. It was just like the silence to just boom. I like to say he bounced his head off the canvas and then shot it in his celebration. Suga Sean gets the dub over Almeida. Give me your thoughts and opinions on this fight, man.
Yeah, well, I thought there in that first round that he really did drop the ball there in terms of finishing Almeida. You know, Mark Smith did every bit the right thing to let Almeida keep fighting, and Almeida got back up, and he started landing some good shots there on O'Malley there as the fight went on. It looked like, I know one of the things that people kept saying, they noticed that Sean O'Malley was limping a little bit. I don't think it was due to the leg kicks, but he does
see that
at
all, to be honest, though.
He was limping a little bit, but I think the reason why he was limping was he seems to have like fragile, I don't know if it's feet, if it's just his legs or whatever, but he went to throw a spinning back kick, and I know that Almeida blocked it, and when he did, it hit his elbow. The kick hit his elbow, and I noticed after that, Sean O'Malley really didn't throw any more of those spinning back kicks, and I think that ended up hurting his foot, and that ended up slowing down a lot of his kicks there, but his boxing did improve as the fight went on. But I just thought overall in terms of the sequence in the first round where he never finished the fight, yeah, he really dropped the ball, man, because he had every chance to finish that fight, and you know, Almeida hit his butt, but he was still clearly in it, and he was trying to get the highlight. And I understand it looks cool on social media and stuff, but the thing that I prefer in a fighter is something more of like a Jorge Masvidal or a Derek Lewis who will go in for the extra punches, because we've seen in this sport, man, this sport is crazy, and you never know what could happen in terms of, you know, the fighter who got knocked down. They could get back up and potentially come back and win the fight. You know, they could get a submission, or they could land a lucky punch of their own. I mean, we've seen Chet Congo and Pat Barry, you know, when a fight goes on a little bit longer than maybe it should have, but, you know, the ref lets the guy up, and then the guy ends up, you know, coming back and winning. So I think that Sean O'Malley should have put his foot on the gas a little more in that sequence right there. But there in the third round, you know, he did the right thing, and Mark Smith did the right thing by letting the fight go on a little bit longer. Sean O'Malley only landed one punch, and that was it. It wasn't like he landed 5 or 6 more punches, and it was just unnecessary damage. You know, Mark Smith let one punch get landed, and then the fight was over. So it's good by Sean O'Malley to actually go in for the kill right there and get it over with. I thought Thomas Almeida, for him to have not fought in the UFC for a few years now, he put on a pretty good performance. He looked a little rusty. You could tell that it had been a while since he had kind of fought, I guess, this level of competition like a Sean O'Malley. It took him a second to get his feet going, but once he did, he put on a pretty good performance and gave Sean O'Malley a pretty good test. But then I just thought there that at the end, Sean O'Malley was a little too slick for him. He got right out of range, and then he hit him with that perfect 1-2. That left hand right down the middle, just caught him right on the chin, and Almeida just hit the ground and was rolling, and Sean O'Malley just went in for the kill, and it was a perfect finish. And I like the celebration afterwards with the fadeaway shot. So had pretty good form on the shot, by the way. So yeah, that was a good performance by Sean O'Malley.
Fair enough. It's crazy to see the different views on the fight. You see me being a huge fan of Suga Sean and me getting so excited about the performance, and then just seeing you like, I'm not impressed. I'm not impressed by his performance, as GSP would say.
It was against Thomas Almeida too, though. So I'm not trying to act like it was against. If that was against Cheeto Vera, had he had that performance against Cheeto Vera, that definitely would have impressed me a little bit more. But Thomas Almeida, he's a guy who I actually don't think he's won since the Cody Garbrandt fight, since Cody Garbrandt put his lights out that one time. So that was a fight that Sean O'Malley was supposed to win, and he did what he was supposed to do. He was supposed to win, so good for him. But yeah, I'd like to see him do that to maybe a step up competition.
Okay, fair enough. We will bring up Suga Sean later on in the show when we talk about the 135 division as a whole. So we just now kind of skipped this card, but let's jump back to. We just now skipped this fight. Let's jump back to it. As you know, I like to call these fights cards for some reason. No idea why. Vicente Luque versus Tyron Woodley. Man, shout out Tyron Woodley. That's just what I want to say. Shout out Tyron Woodley. He came out proving all the haters wrong, myself, Dorian included. We said if he comes out and puts his back on the fence as he has in his past 3 fights, Vicente Luque is going to take his head back to Brazil with him. But that didn't happen. Tyron Woodley coming out storming Vicente Luque. I was like, oh shit, what do we have? We got a fight here, ladies and gentlemen. But it was quick shown that Vicente Luque was expecting that. He knew that Tyron Woodley was probably going to come out and try to take his head off. He knew that Tyron was trying to prove people wrong. Vicente Luque, it was a good back and forth fight for the one round that it was. They ended up getting fight of the night, and it was well deserved. That being said, Tyron Woodley hits Vicente Luque with a shot, kind of rocks him just a little bit, but I believe he got overzealous. Vicente Luque hits him with a counter, and then from that point on, Tyron Woodley's just on baby deer legs at that point, stumbled back to the fence, and honestly, as sad as it sounds, doing what Tyron is comfortable with, and that is going back to the fence. I know he was doing it to stand up, but you even saw, when he got dropped, he immediately stood up, and that's where he went. You can tell that that's where he's most comfortable at. Tyron definitely did look better, but as you see, Vicente Luque is just a young killer. I believe Tyron Woodley, I don't know if he should be cut from the UFC, but I do believe that he will, and I do believe that he will be the champion of whatever division he ends up at next if he comes out fighting like that. That being said, Vicente Luque, just a silent killer. I know I just said that, but just showing that he is this young up-and-comer killer, and he belongs in the upper echelon of the division. I don't know how he's going to look against these top wrestlers that that he can't just get out of there with these shots, these killers that he's just trying to put away right off the bat. He called out Nate Diaz afterwards. I don't know if he's going to get that fight just as far as name value, but give me your thoughts on what went down in this fight, Dorian, and what you thought about the call out of Nate Diaz from Vicente Luque after the fight.
Well, you know how big of a fan I am of Vicente Luque, so I was excited to see him actually get a named opponent in Tyron Woodley and be able to, display to a lot of people that the dude has real skill, man. He took a big shot from Woodley, and I think, same thing that you said, shout out to Woodley, man. He's another one that I also ended up feeling bad for. He ended up he came out with a lot of fire, man, and that was one thing that everybody is criticizing for on this winning streak or on this losing streak that he's been on against Usman, Burns, and Colby, was that he had no fire in any of those fights when he was in there. You know, he just kept putting his back up against the fence and was basically letting those guys tee off on him. He had been getting taken down more than he had ever been in his career, and all of his performances were just, they were lifeless. And I thought, you know, he came right out the gates and took Vicente Luque to the cage immediately, or took him to the fence immediately. Got him in the clinch. Was trying to throw some big knees. Started throwing some big overhand rights. Landed a big one on Vicente Luque. Hit him right behind his ear. Stumbled him for a minute. Woodley, he started landing a couple big rights. He landed a good 1-2. His hands were actually looking really good, and that's what kind of stinks about it all, is that, you know, Woodley came out like a bat out of hell, and it just seems like even, you know, him coming out the way that we all wanted him to, it still didn't result in a win. So that's why ultimately I feel bad for him, but just for Luque, for him to take that shot in the way he did and still be composed to see Woodley throw that big uppercut, and for him to slip it and throw that big overhand right to rock Woodley. That was actually the same punch that Woodley hit Darren Till with. Darren Till went to throw the uppercut, and Woodley hit him with a big overhand right. So kind of funny to see it come back full circle with Vicente Luque doing the same thing to Woodley. But hit him with that big overhand right, rocked him. Woodley just goes flying back to the fence after he starts getting teed off on. And then Luque, you know, that darce choke, man, you know, him and Tony Ferguson might have the best darce chokes in the game. And, you know, when Luque had somebody hurt, he was snatching in a heartbeat. And he got Woodley against the fence, and Woodley got kind of trapped to the point to where he was already exhausted, he was already rocked, and he had no other choice but to tap. And for Luque to make Woodley's tap, you know, he's been TKO'd a couple of times. I think Woodley did. And then, Colby TKO'd him. And then Nate Marquardt did back in the day, but he had never been submitted before. So for Vicente Luque to be able to submit Tyron Woodley like that, you know, that's a feather in his cap that no one has been able to do, and just proves that he does belong within the top 6-5 of the division. You know, I know he's lost to Stephen Thompson and Leon Edwards, but other than that, you know, I think he's just as game of a competitor as any of them up in that division right now. You know, Michael Chiesa and Colby Covington and Gilbert Burns, you know, I think he's just as capable as any of those guys that can, you know, potentially challenge for the title in the future.
Definitely. One thing that I just want to say is Jason Herzog really giving Tyron Woodley every chance. You know, he was giving him every chance. They were both winging punches, and it was almost like he was like, you know what, he might hit him back, and he was just kind of letting it kind of go on. I believe that he probably could have stopped the fight multiple times there because Tyron was kind of getting teed off on, but just right when he was going to stop it, Tyron would throw something back, you know, and show that he was in that fight. And like as far as the finish in the darce, it was almost like Tyron fell into it. Like he, like Vicente Luque didn't really have to do anything. He was already in it. He was just like, oh, here we go. Let me just put my arm right here. And it was already in it. His arm was trapped in his leg and everything. It was like the worst position for Tyron to fall. It literally fell right into a darce. That being said, let's move down. You know I am high on Miranda Maverick. She's a local to here, trains right down the road. And you see why. This girl is a monster, beating the brakes off Jillian Robertson. I did have a bet on this Miranda Maverick by TKO or KO. I really thought she was going to get it done. Close multiple times in the fight, but unanimous decision over Jillian Robertson. Man, like Miranda Maverick is really showing herself to be a contender in this 125 division. Without being too wild, I would kind of like to see her matched up against Macy Barber next, man. I believe it is a good matchup. Like, these are two young fighters. Both want to be the champion. Both possess similar skill sets. Let's see who's the best out of these young contenders right now. Give me your thoughts on what happened between this fight, Dorian.
Yeah, Miranda Maverick put on a good performance, and she actually faced some adversity there, sort of halfway through the fight, because Jillian Robertson ended up taking that second round when she ended up getting Miranda on her back, and she pretty much controlled that whole round. Even though she wasn't getting off much damage, she was getting off a lot of submission attempts, and no matter how much Miranda tried to switch position to try to get back up on her feet, Jillian Robertson was able to transition and keep the control. So it was definitely 1-1 going into the third round. And I thought, you could tell Miranda Maverick had a sense of urgency there to, kind of put her stamp on the fight, because she knew that it was definitely close getting down the stretch. And there toward the end, when Miranda Maverick started putting it on Jillian Robinson started just shooting for takedowns, just about every single time Miranda would get close to her, because she knew that she wasn't going to be able to stand up with her and win the fight. And she started putting the pressure on her towards the end. She even started going for takedowns herself, and she ended up putting on a really good performance. And I don't know about the Macy Barber call-out. I think the UFC still wants to try to do something with Macy Barber in terms of building her up. I think there's people within the division that you can match Miranda Maverick up with that can build her up and don't have to knock off Macy Barber. Maybe you can match her up with a Roxanne Modafferi. You can match her up with one of those like the older names of the division, maybe, and kind of get her name off like that. But overall, Miranda Maverick had a good performance.
Okay, fair enough. Shout out Miranda Maverick. Grading papers all the way up until Friday. Like it said on the I guess announcement. Announcement. Or like whatever. About to receive her doctorate. So definitely a smart girl. Knows what she's doing in the cage. Man, just a talent overall. We are going to move on to the first card. There we go again. The first fight on the main card. Jamie Mullarkey versus Kama Worthy. I missed this one. I'm going to be honest. I had 5 guys during the prelims, and I was in the bathroom during this part, and I was trying to get you to tell me what happened, and you wouldn't tell me. I had to go rewind and see what happened. Man, Jamie Mullarkey knocked Kama Worthy clean out, man. Let me know what happened here, because I'm going to be honest, I kind of missed it.
The fight started pretty quick, They were coming out swinging pretty heavy. Jamie Mullarkey right away started getting to swinging the hooks, and Kama Worthy was starting to throw some kicks, and he had landed a few of them. He had landed a few, teep kicks to the body, but Mullarkey kept moving in, and he was landing a jab, or I'm sorry, not a jab, but he was landing the right hand, and right there toward the end, right before he got the knockout, he feints the right hand, and Kama Worthy goes to block that one, and as soon as he feints it, he brings the left hook up and around and catches Kama Worthy clean on the chin and knocks him out. And with the way that he hit Kama Worthy fell like Ric Flair would if he got hit in his head with a steel chair. Like, he fell like he got hit, and he just fell face first, and Jamie Mullarkey went in there for the kill and was able to get him out of there. And man, he knocked him out so bad. Kama Worthy actually went to Jamie Mullarkey's corner and asked him what happened, because he actually didn't know that he ended up getting knocked out. He asked multiple people, "Hey, what happened? What happened?" So Jamie Mullarkey, man, he wasted no time, got right to business, landed that big left hook, and was able to get Kama Worthy out of there. So it was definitely, if it wasn't for the Francis knockout, that probably would have been the knockout of the night. But of course, Francis had to get that nod. But Jamie Mullarkey, man, that definitely had to be the second best knockout of the night. I'll give him that.
Fair enough. I did see the replay, and it looked nasty. I did not see the real-time play, but it is okay. So, that being said, Dorian, that is all for the main card. We did our picks. Prelim card, aside from Fabio Cherant, the current LFA champion. Like I did message you right before this fight, and I'm like, I like Cherant, current LFA champion. You know, let's kind of see what he has here. But Alonzo Menifield, man, just coming out and just putting on a super quick performance, gets him in the I guess the OSP number 4 in the UFC to pull it off. Anything on this one here, man?
Yeah, just funny that Alonzo Menifield actually ended up getting the OSP choke after he ended up taking a loss to OSP. Yeah. So kind of funny that he ended up taking one of his old opponent's tricks and using it on his next opponent. But yeah, that was for him to come out aggressive like he did to get the takedown is just showing that he's, you know, adding more wrinkles to his game as well. So good performance by him, and he wasted no time as well. Got right to business. As soon as, you know, Cherant wouldn't let go of that guillotine, he just rolled over into the OSP choke and ended up getting him out of there. So yeah, quick and nice performance by him.
Definitely. The cousin of Khabib, I want to say I said like last week that there was like no relation, but man, I don't even know anymore. All the Dagestans, I feel like they're just changing their name to Nurmagomedov at this point. I don't even know who's related to Khabib anymore. But anyway, Khabib, definitely the coach here. Looks like to be going out to be coach of the year at this point. Man, I'm not even going to try to say his name. Khabib's cousin going up against Jared Gooden here. I don't even know what to say besides Jared Gooden was so worried about the takedown, man. He was just getting his face pretty much boxed off, and just decision over 3 rounds. Nurmagomedov just gets it done, putting on a hell of a performance over Gooden. Anything on this one here, man?
Yeah, just that, you know, their Nurmagomedov family, you know, they're starting to evolve. And, you know, they're really known for their grappling. And that's what they're known for because of Khabib, obviously. You know, him, Islam, you know, these guys have been wrestling everybody. But you see the newer generation now, they're more evolved fighters. They're more evolved strikers. You know, and Jared Gooden was so concerned with the takedown that he kept his hands down, and Nurmagomedov was able to land, you know, some clean kicks. He landed a bunch of body kicks. He landed a bunch of good 1-2s and was able to really box him up. And he really didn't utilize wrestling until maybe the 3rd round. I mean, I know he used it in the 2nd round as well, but even, like, you know, in the 1st round, I think he only went for 1 takedown attempt, missed it, and kept it on the feet the whole time, and even won the fight that way too. So I just thought it was a complete fight from Abu Bakr for him to, you know, mix in the striking and the wrestling, and it just shows this newer crop of Nurmagomedovs and what they can do. And like you said, Coach Khabib, man, him and James Krause, they're going in for Coach of the Year, early votes for Coach of the Year between those two right now. So, but good performance overall by Abu Bakr.
Exactly. That's why I didn't even try right there.
I got it. Abu Bakr.
So, really the only other fight on this card that I want to really say anything about is the first fight of the night, Marc-Andre Barriault going up against Abu Azaitar. Here we go. Abu really putting the pressure on Marc-Andre Barriault when the fight very first started, but really from that point on, Marc-Andre Barriault just showing that, you know, he had that cardio. He was not getting out of there. Azaitar's corner, Ali Abdelaziz, was trying to get him to get up as best as he could, but he had no answer. In that 3rd round there, Marc-Andre Barriault ended up having him mounted and just raining shots down over and over. It ended up getting stopped in the 3rd round with 4 seconds left. So crazy. I had it in a parlay, but it ended up not cashing at the end of the night because Suga Sean wanted to have the walk-off and not finish it there at the end, but it's okay. I still love my man, Suga Sean. I'm still rooting for you no matter what, my man. So that being said, Dorian, I guess that's going to be off for this card. Any other takeaways, like from the card, not involving the heavyweight division or the 135-pound division?
No, really, just a great card overall. Even for it to lose Volkanovski versus Ortega, it was all but one fight on there. Was all finishes on the main card. So, really good night of fights overall, and definitely worth the money for sure.
Definitely. So that being said, let's talk about the heavyweights, man. Like, there's a lot going on because of what happened last night. This opened so many doors. The logjam at the top seems to finally be kind of cleared out, at least just a little bit. We have a little bit of movement in there because Francis is one that seems to be, he wants to fight. He don't care. He don't care who it is. Just give the man a fight. And if the man is down to defend the heavyweight championship over and over and over, I'm down to see, man. This dude is scary. From now on, there will not be a time that I'm alive that this man is fighting that I will not be tuning in live to see, dude. This guy is so scary, but I am down for it. I cannot wait to get me to get me some more Francis Ngannou. This dude, if anything at all, just the struggle and the story that he's been through, this man deserves to be the heavyweight champion of the world. But that being said, what's next for him, dude? Does Stipe deserve a rematch here? John Jones is kind of out there. What about Derek Lewis? Just overall, man, just what are your thoughts? What's next for Francis?
Yeah, I mean, he's really in a tough position here because, well, not him, but Stipe is. Stipe's in a tough position because I think with Stipe, some people might be able to make the argument that he deserves a third fight with Ngannou. Man, just with the way it was that convincing, I don't know if we're going to be able to throw Stipe in there right away. So I think for Ngannou, a lot of people are.
How about this? Like, everyone's like Stipe versus Ngannou 3, but it doesn't have to be right away, does it? Like, can it be like in a year? Like, can it be like? Can we give some time for like Stipe to heal? Let's I guess let's just get someone else in there just in the meantime. Sorry for cutting y'all off there, man, but it's like everyone's like, no, this don't gotta be right away, but I do believe that he deserves that third rematch at some point.
Yeah, and I would say the same thing, that, maybe not right away. Just a fresh matchup, just to keep it moving and not to have everything stalled out. Francis seemed pretty willing in his post-fight press conference that I listened to that, he was pretty much willing to fight anybody, whether it was, he said he believed that he didn't think that Stipe deserved an immediate rematch, but he said if that was the case, then, he'll be up to fight him and it doesn't matter. He was asked about Derek Lewis. He said that he really would prefer to fight John Jones, but doesn't care if it's Derek Lewis. He really just wants to, be active and defend his belt. So I think for him, it doesn't really matter. I think the fight that obviously everybody's going to want to see is him versus John Jones. See if John Jones really wants to move up to heavyweight and fight him. Man, I don't know if John Jones is going to either negotiate his way out of this fight or not, because Dana didn't seem to impress in the post-fight press conference that John Jones was saying basically pay up and he'll take the fight. Dana seemed pretty content with moving on to either Derek Lewis or somebody else and not putting John Jones in there. So John Jones might be in a position to where him making the public statements about paying up and everything, he might end up negotiating his way out of a heavyweight title shot. And he even admitted that, Derek Lewis could go ahead and take the fight and that, he would be patient because he's not going to ruin a dream matchup of everybody else's. So he said that he was very content with Derek Lewis taking the fight. So it almost seems like what's going to be next, just for the sake of keeping the division moving, it's probably going to be Derek Lewis versus Francis Ngannou. And it's crazy to kind of think that, because in that first fight, that fight might be the most boring fight in UFC history. Francis Ngannou versus Derek Lewis won. And the fact that a rematch might be possible between them two is crazy. But, man, I'm not going to lie. I would still have the same pre-fight jitters for that fight as I did before their first fight. And I would have a lot better speculation on this one that it's not going to end nearly how it did in the first fight. So if the Derek Lewis fight is to happen, I'll definitely be happy with that. I'll settle with it, because you know how much I love Derek Lewis anyway. But I think the fight that everybody wants to see is Jon Jones, and if the UFC's smart, you got to do everything you can to make that fight happen.
So, your opinion right now, if you are Dana White, what's your next fight? Do you pay up and pay Jon Jones? Do you call up Stipe and be like, hey man, do you want it right away? Like, what's up? Or do you go ahead and try to cash out on the Derek Lewis? You have 3 options. You have one answer. What is it?
Man, so are you telling me what I want or what I think is going to happen?
If you're Dana White, the next fight, what is it?
If I'm Dana, just with the way Jon Jones is being, I think you got to do Derek Lewis. Because I think Derek Lewis is. I think that Jon Jones is going to end up negotiating his way out of this fight. Okay. I do. I believe that he's going to end up negotiating his way out of the fight. And I don't blame him for asking for his money. No one's saying that he's not deserving of it, but Dana doesn't like to play those types of games either, and he's well content with moving on. Let's not forget when Colby Covington won the interim title a few years back, and when he didn't want to fight on the date that Woodley was supposed to fight, Woodley ended up fighting Darren Till instead, and Colby got stripped of the interim title. So I just believe that, in terms of, fighting for the title next for Jon Jones, they're not going to want to wait around for him to, or they're not going to want to fork up all this money to pay him. If they can just move on to the next fight, I think they're going to move on to the next fight. And I think that, if Jon Jones ends up getting into a position to where he's not going to want to fight the UFC when the UFC says for this amount of money, then they're going to move on to the Derek Lewis fight. So I think I think the Derek Lewis fight is going to happen next.
Okay, fair enough. You know what? I wouldn't even be mad. Yeah, I would still pay to see it. I don't know which way I would lean. Francis would be the favorite for a reason, because he's just so much more athletic. But Derek Lewis, man, he possesses, I don't know if it's the identical missile that Francis has, but man, the dude has power too, and one-shot power at heavyweight. It's definitely interesting. So, you think Derek Lewis is the next fight? I could definitely see it going that way. I don't really like the Stipe rematch right away, at least. And Jon Jones he is asking for money. I don't know. That's the one that me personally, I would like to see next is Francis versus Jon Jones. I'm a huge Jon Jones fan, but
that's the fight that everybody. Yeah. That's the fight that everybody wants to see.
Like, how can you not pay the man? Francis. How can you not pay the man? The fight's going to be probably the biggest fight. I don't know if it's the biggest fight in UFC history, because Connor's not involved. But man, Francis is slowly growing his brand. Man, he's there. I don't know if he's at that point yet. I guess we'll see how the pay-per-view numbers are, but for sure, man, the next one is for sure going to show you what is the star power of Francis Ngannou. So, I guess, that being said, dude, what does Jon Jones do from here if he's not going to fight for the heavyweight title next?
I think he just ends up just waiting on the sideline to see if Dana's going to be willing to end up folding. I've seen that Jon Jones tweeted that he was content with Derek Lewis taking the fight, and that, he basically wanted to not ruin the dream matchup and wanted to make sure that he got paid what he is paid. So I think that he either sits on the sideline until he gets what he wants, or, other than that, Jon Jones is legacy is pretty much cemented as the greatest fighter ever. You know, you really can't take too much away from him in terms of what he's done, you know, in the light heavyweight division. You know, a lot of people already consider him the greatest of all time, so he has nothing left to prove. I just think that he sits on the sideline and waits until he gets what he wants, or maybe he just doesn't fight again.
Man, that would break my heart to never see John Jones fight again. That's literally my favorite fighter since I started watching UFC. Like, I remember the first time where did I see John Jones at first? I don't even remember. It was for sure in 2010, just some point right before he had won the title. Just I was like, wow, that dude is my favorite. I went out, I bought his shirt, the Forum shirt, the red and black one. I can just think back and just remember, man, what a time in my life. We didn't have to worry about anything back then, dude. Just where the
no bills, no worries.
What year would that have been? That would have been probably our junior year in high school, man. Around that time, just they didn't have anything to worry about.
Young pups.
I remember driving. Dude, I drove all the way to Roanoke. That was the only place that showed UFC fights at that time, was the Hooters in Roanoke. That was the only place, man. Nowhere else showed the UFC fights. So I took the, a 40-minute drive? I don't know, a crazy long drive. Yeah, something like that. Just a hell of a drive just to watch UFC fights back when I was a young pup. Now I'm lucky enough where I can watch it in my house. But, man, I guess not really much else to say, about where the heavyweight division's at, dude. It's kind of crazy. It's kind of up in the air. Log jammed, but not. We have some energy flowing through there, at least just a little bit. Francis seems to be down enough to just defend the title against whoever. He doesn't care too much. So right now is when we would usually talk about next week's card, but right now we don't really have a next week's card because there is no next week's card. Our next card is April 10th, Vittori versus Till. But if we talked about that right now, we wouldn't have anything to talk about next week. So we're going to save it, man. And any kind of news or anything you want to talk about right now, not involving the 135-pound division?
Yeah, I was more focused on the 135-pound division and it's more specific on Aljo's comments and what he had to say.
Okay, fair enough. So no news or anything, just no topics that pop into my head personally either. So we'll just move down to the 135 division as a whole. Last night, Suga Sean put on a performance, and I believe it's going to be a matter of time before he gets a top 5 contender. I do believe it, dude. As you saw, Chito Vera got Jose Aldo in his last fight, man. We're going to talk about what's next for Suga Sean, but before we get to that, you just mentioned him. Aljamain Sterling did I believe a press conference, a few days ago. He kind of went on kind of bashing Peter Yan, kind of saying that, he's the champion, he has X amount of fights, he knows what the rules are, that because of that, he looked down, he had to have seen him, that because he need him the way that he did, almost saying that Yan was looking for a way out of the fight himself, saying that he couldn't get Aljo out of there, so he looked for an illegal knee to get him out of there, and said that he don't really deserve a rematch, dude. So I guess with his statements and all, let me set this up differently. What are your thoughts on Aljo's statements? Yeah.
As far as his statement, man, I know that he's been doing this thing where he's been playing the heel a little more, but I'm starting to wonder deep down inside, because he did kind of admit that he was losing that fight down the stretch, which kind of blew his mind as to why Peter Yan did throw the knee. Man, I'm just wondering if Aljo just wants maybe just a little bit of an easier matchup. maybe with a different fighter before he ends up fighting Peter Yan again. I don't know if he wants to go through another grueling camp to get ready for Peter Yan just immediately. Of course, I don't think he's scared of anybody or anything like that, but I think if he could maybe push the Peter Yan fight off, maybe if he could get a Henry Cejudo, TJ Dillashaw fight before he ends up fighting Peter Yan again, I think if he might be able to slide that in, I think he'd be fine. But at the end of the day, I think that Yan is going to, end up getting that fight for the rematch. And Yan has been punished. He got punished by getting disqualified and losing the title. I think the only reason why you really reward him with the rematch is because he was winning the fight. And he ended up ruining it himself with doing the knee. So I think that he's deserving of the rematch and that he's going to get it. But Aljo's really playing up this troll level well, and hopefully it leads to some pay-per-view buys for him. And I know he's really been trolling the Russian fans here lately as well. So maybe his comments were a form of trolling, but maybe it really was a sense of, man, he felt that power of Yan, and if he can maybe just squeeze one or two more fights in as a champ before he faces him again, I'm sure he wouldn't mind that at all.
Fair enough. And I kind of agree with your statement. I am an Aljo fan. Me and you both are. So I do enjoy seeing him as the champ. That fight didn't look like it was going his way, though. But in his, I guess, the interview or whatever, the press conference, whatever it was called, he said that the reason he got tired was he hadn't ate properly that day. That normally in the gym, he does what he was doing all 5 rounds with 3 different sparring partners at one point. So I don't know, man. It's going to be interesting to see what fight is actually made next. Man, I really have something in my eye here. I'm trying not to be messing with my eye while we're doing this, but it's really bothering me. But
dude, I had the same thing earlier too. Like, I'm trying so hard not to.
It's all right. But anyway, so that being said, dude, I don't really know what's next. It's honestly kind of up in the air. If I'm Dana White, do I force Yan? Do I force Yan on Aljo for the second fight right away? I think I do, man. I think you have to be like, hey, man, look how this last fight ended. Like, the rightful guy needs to be the champion, so you're either going to fight him right away or, like, what's happening? I'm going to tell you what I think is going to happen, Dorian. I believe that my statements from our podcast when we picked the champions for the end of the year, my statement is going to be correct, and this is why. I said that Aljo was going to be the champion at the end of the year. You said TJ Dillashaw. Aljo is the champion right now, and that's all that it has to remain that way. I believe Aljo is going to milk this, and something's going to come up where he's not going to have to fight Yan this year. I believe they make Yan versus either Sandhagen or TJ Dillashaw for the interim 135-pound champion, because I do think Aljo is going to milk this just a little bit, because he said it in the press conference. This could take years off of my career. So is he kind of giving a little hint as to what's to come, or is he talking about overall the end of his career? So that being said, I don't really know, man. So what do you think is happening here?
I actually didn't think about it in terms of doing the interim belt, for Aljo to kind of milk this thing out a little bit longer. I could see him doing that, but I don't think that they would end up doing an interim fight at the end of the year. I think that, when was the fight? February? March. So, the beginning of this month. So, I think that, they'll wait it out at least about a year or so. I think that, by a year, if the fight hadn't happened, then they'll go ahead and move on from him. Maybe even strip Aljo if they don't do an interim title fight. Just because I don't think the company are in really good standing with Aljo right now. especially with the way he's kind of been handling the whole thing. But I think they'll end up getting it resolved to where they end up getting Jan and Sterling in there. I think Sterling's going to milk it out as long as he can. I think it's probably going to be a little bit closer towards the end of the year, maybe November, December-ish, in that area that the fight's going to end up happening. I think Aljo is going to milk it out as long as he can, but I think the UFC is going to eventually end up getting the fight done, maybe later in the year, to finally decide who's the rightful winner between the two.
Okay. So, in the next, I guess, 3 to 4 minutes or so, this should be easy for you, but for me personally, Suga Sean, dude, I believe that he's deserving of someone in the top, I want to say 3 to 7. He deserves to fight someone in that range. As you saw, Chito Vera got Jose Aldo last. I don't know if I want to see Suga Sean up against Jose Aldo, but I believe someone just a little bit more tailored toward his style, and I think that should be what is next for him. What do you think should be next for Suga Sean O'Malley here, Dorian?
Yeah, for Sean O'Malley, I just think that, I don't have a specific name for him per se, but just a step up in competition. I would just like to be able to see that. Now, I think that Thomas Almeida was a good matchup for him to have kind of a get-right fight, and that's what it was a get-right fight for him. And I think that, he kind of got his confidence, his swagger back a little bit, so I would like to see him matched up with one of a top 10-ish, type of opponent. I don't have the name in mind right off. Maybe.
Let's see if I can
want to say maybe like
rankings real quick.
Yeah, I want to say maybe like a Marlon. Sorry,
I see you falling asleep on me, so I'm gonna have to fucking make sure that
it's been a long day. I'm sorry, it's been a long day. No, I was up late last night watching the pay-per-view, so I'm an old man now, so you gotta bear with me a little bit. But I want to say maybe like a Marlon. Marlon is on a 3-fight losing streak right now, so I think that he's probably going to be ranked, I would imagine, like in the 10, 11-ish area.
When you say Marlon, you mean Marlon Moraes?
Yes.
All right, so he's ranked number 6 right now. I do think that's a good. So just off the top right now, Peter Yan 1, Corey Sandhagen number 2, Rob Font number 3, but matched up with Cody Garbrandt, who is number 4. Jose Aldo number 5, Marlon Vera 6, Frankie Edgar number 7. I feel like that's the fight that might be made, Dorian.
Man, do you actually want to see him fight? Do you actually want to see him fight with Frankie though?
I don't.
With Frankie's wrestling ability.
But if I know UFC, I believe next is either going to be one of these 3 names. Are you ready for it? Frankie Edgar, Pedro Munoz, or Dominic Cruz. That is 7, 8, and 9. One of those 3 next. I believe one of those 3 next is Suga Sean O'Malley's next opponent.
That Munoz fight, that would be a tough one for him, man. And just with the leg kicks of Pedro Munoz, could you imagine what Sean O'Malley's legs would look like if Pedro Munoz started leg kicking a man? So he's definitely got a tall test up for him next. No matter where he goes from here, but I do think maybe a top 10 opponent, maybe a Marlon Moraes, maybe a Dominic Cruz. I don't know if Dominic Cruz is wanting to be at the position to where he's going to be fighting every up and comer, but maybe that Marlon Moraes fight, something like that.
All right, fair enough. So that being said, that's pretty much all of our topics for the week, man. So we are going to move along to the last one of the day. Dorian is literally falling asleep on me. I'm watching his eyes close. So as he watches this, it's going to be funny because I'm going to be sure to zoom in because at some point this man is like I see his eyes closing.
I told you I had something in my eye earlier.
I promise you.
I didn't want to scratch it.
I promise you, you're going to see it and be like, fuck, he was right. You're going to see,
Yeah.
I promise. It's going to look very similar.
No.
One thing that we don't ever ask you guys to do is to comment below. So right now I'm going to ask you guys, if you have seen Dorian fall asleep anytime throughout this episode, please comment right now and let me know I'm not crazy. Because I'm like, damn, am I that damn boring? Like, do I need to say something else? So let me know if you've seen this man start to kind of doze off in this episode. So we are moving lastly to the WTF moment of the week. Hopefully Dorian has a good one here. What is it, man? Throw it at me.
So I've been doing some thinking. You kind of had me on my toes because, on the last one that I did, I really didn't bring it that well. So, yes, in the season right now, as it is the NFL Combine. I'm a big NFL football fan, so I know that you're not as big of a football fan anymore now. I know the Atlanta Falcons have let you down. But one of the things that's been going on is the NFL Combine, or not the Combine, but a lot of people's pro days, getting ready for the NFL Draft. So just kind of got me in the mood of football and wanting to maybe put together a little flag football team. So I've seen some flag football organizations before with 5 players. They usually have one guy who's snapping the ball to the quarterback. So you'll have a center, you'll have 2 wide receivers, 1 quarterback, and a running back. And I wanted to see if you had to make a 5-player flag football team from any you pick any fighter in the UFC, 1 to play the center, 2 to play wide receiver, 1 to play quarterback, and 1 to play running back. Who do you choose to create the ultimate flag football team in the UFC?
All right, so I'm the coach. All right, let's see here. I think center, whose body type comes to mind? Tai Tuivasa. Tai Tuivasa is the center of me. The dude is a rugby fan, so look at that. It kind of like works back and forth. I do think that he's probably played some rugby in his days, and because of that, I have to go with Volkanovski as my running back too, because with the rugby background experience right there. So that's 2 players. That's my center and my running back. 2 wide receivers. Who do I think is probably the quickest people in the UFC? I said it last time. I'm going to say it again. I'm going Kevin Holland. Kevin Holland is going to be one of my wide receivers. The dude's just athletic. And secondly, I'm going Dom Reyes. Dom Reyes used to play cornerback in college, so he has to have some at least decent hands. He has prior football experience. So that just leaves 1 as my quarterback. I'm going to need someone tall, but kind of mobile. Man, I feel like a lot of people fight for a reason. They tend to be very uncoordinated when it comes to other sports. Have you seen most fighters try to shoot any basketball? It is literally hilarious. So, who is going to be my quarterback? Who is my quarterback? Who looks like that they're composed, calm? I'm going Stipe, man. Stipe looks like he could be an NFL quarterback in another life. So that is my team. Tai Tuivasa as my center. My 2 wide receivers, Kevin Holland, Dominic Reyes. My running back, Alexander Volkanovski. And my quarterback, the greatest heavyweight of all time, Stipe Miocic. That is my team, man. What do you got to say about it?
Man, you actually brought a fire team and actually got me kind of on my heels right now because
you're like, oh wow.
Yeah, well, because actually the Dominic Reyes, I had him, but I'll make it a little bit different because I don't want to do the same thing.
All right.
I'm thinking.
Was that the only player that you had picked that is the same?
Yeah,
wow,
that's
surprising. That's surprising. I thought for sure he would have picked Volkanovski. Like Volkanovski has a rugby experience.
I completely forgot about Volkanovski having the experience in that arena. So yeah, he was like, I forgot. 214 some odd pounds. So I definitely remember now that you say it, but. In the context of the question, I didn't remember. But, no, I did have a couple former football players in mind. I was thinking
now that I'm thinking about it, I'm like, Well, he didn't say we needed a defense, so I mean, I guess that's not too bad.
Yeah,
I have a solid team. I have a solid team. There's a solid 5 players. Now, when it comes to defending and like blocking, that's not too much. I mean, it's flag football, so Greg Hardy ain't going to be out there mashing people.
And Dominic Reyes played defense. Yeah, Dominic Reyes played defense too. So I mean, you can use the same players on offense and defense.
Yeah, fair enough.
I was going to use a couple of those players myself, but starting with my center, you already kind of noted him, is Greg Hardy.
Okay.
He can definitely play the block my quarterback, play the center position. He's a big guy, big defensive end when he was in the league. I think I'm going to go with my running back. Give me Alonzo Menifield. Also a former football player.
Okay.
He played defensive end, but I believe he played running back in high school. So give me Alonzo Menifield to play my running back position. Give me Open St. Prue, actually, to play one of my wide receiver positions. I want to have a bigger wide receiver. I like the wide receivers that can kind of get up and go for the ball. OSP, he's about 6'3" or so, I believe.
Yeah,
so,
something around there.
Yeah, definitely some good size on him. I want my other receiver to be kind of like a quicker wide receiver. He can kind of dash in and out real well. Since I already got one big guy in OSP. Man, I feel like for some reason he just seems like he would end up being a good football player. Is Aljamain Sterling? I feel like he would be a good wide receiver. He has the small wide receiver build to where he would be really quick off the line, really good hands. So give me Aljo, and then for my quarterback, man, I'm not going to lie, I've still actually been going back and forth because kind of the same thing that you said. Fighters are so uncoordinated in so other arenas of sports. So that's a lot of reasons why they end up picking fighting is because, they suck at other sports. But maybe for my quarterback, give me John Jones, just because I think with his brother's background in the league, maybe Chandler Jones. I know he's a pretty good athlete overall. I've seen him throw a football before. Maybe he can sharpen John Jones up on his skills. So give me John Jones at quarterback. My center, Greg Hardy. Running back, Alonzo Menifield. Receiver, OSP. Receiver, Aljo Sterling. And quarterback, John Jones.
Okay, so your team consisting of mostly former literal football players. I didn't really think about it too much. I just like, who would be good in that spot? Just a couple other notable names. Eric Anders, I feel like could have fit in somewhere there too. Who else comes to mind when I think who formerly played football? Let's just Google this real quick.
And you said the Dominic Reyes one, and that was one that I had thought about, but the Volkanovski one, I didn't think about that one. Greg Hardy, Menifield, OSP. I know OSP played at Tennessee in college, so I'm trying to think of somebody else. I can't really think of too many people.
Let's see here. American football may have been the biggest connection to MMA than any other sport, with a long body of training, physical nature, octagon evidence to form a UFC roster. Greg Hardy, Eric Anders, Ovin St. Preux, John Vellante. All played D1 football. So that's just specifically D1 football. And we all know Matt Mitrione, Big Brown, Brendan Schaub, and the famous Brock Lesnar all played in the NFL. So basketball, pretty big list as well. I just want to throw this just real quick. I'm just reading this story and I'm laughing just a little bit. It says basketball. Former basketball players, blah, 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 include Walt Harris, played D1. Alistair Overeem played basketball, apparently. Oh, no. Former heavyweight.
I was like, Overeem played basketball?
No, it was talking about his fight with Overeem. So Walt Harris, Travis Brown, and the little nugget at the bottom. And of course, this list wouldn't be complete without mentioning the UFC's light heavyweight champion, Khabib Nurmagomedov. Listed him as a basketball player because the Dagestani basketball. It's almost like this is a literal joke on the UFC website. That is hilarious. Rugby on here has Miocic is in the Alexander Volkanovski has a background and so Alexander Volkanovski and Tai Tuivasa has had a hand in rugby. So look at that. I didn't even know Tai Tuivasa played, but the dude looks like a fucking tank. I'm not even gonna lie. If I could have picked Mark Hunt, I probably would have picked Mark Hunt. He's not in the UFC anymore and a little bit older at this point. I have something stuck on my foot. So I guess that's pretty much all, guys. Anything else on the show today, Dorian? It's a long one. You're falling asleep on me, man.
Yeah, no, I was not falling asleep. But no, man, just a good pod overall, man. So it sucks that there's no fights coming up this weekend. It almost feels like it's supposed to be tradition for a fight every weekend. So
I know, man.
But yeah, we'll be back strong next week.
Yeah, for sure. So that being said, as Dorian said, we will be back next week. Until then, we want all of you out there to like this video, subscribe, share it with anyone. Remember, comment below if you saw this man fall asleep in today's video. But that is all for today's show. Make sure you stay golden.